You've unlocked this podcast with the itch of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension of sound, a dimension of aspects, dimension of laughter. You're moving into a state of beginnings and ends. You've just crossed over to Dysfictional. I'm Randy the Random Generator.
I'm Tukey, former academic gone fiend.
And I'm Ginger, professional film industry victim.
Wow.
Where are we?
Well, we're currently in the dimension of ends because I think our campaign's over.
Wait, it is?
Oh, shit. That's right. Man. Okay. So, yeah, campaign's over.
But I wasn't ready.
You guys weren't dead yet, kind of. I mean, you're kind of dead, but Tukey. But
I'm in a perpetual state of something.
Yeah, you're slowly becoming a fiend, and it's fantastic.
Spoilers.
Everything
I
is
don't like it.
awesome. Everything is cool when Asmodeus is ripping you apart. But yeah, so campaign's over. For those who have just started listening, we had a campaign that was all fiend-based. Specifically, it was devils. So this campaign was a build around a previous character of specifically Tukey's, who found out in another campaign that his order for his paladin was in fact a fiend. Kind of spiraled from there and sort of honing in and focusing on killing the fiend and then killing fiends in general. But that continent that we were focused on was mostly devils. They went through a few unnamed devils who are kind of doing their thing. We had a few cameos of other people's characters that made appearances for some of this, but overall, some of their adventures kind of led that happened to be fiends that they didn't even know about. And then it sort of all kind of spiraled to a sort of doomsday. And they had a time skip where a lot of their characters had some shifts, had some downtime, and had basically years to almost recreate your character. So it's really cool if you didn't like aspects of your character and stuff that you could remodel it. You could change things up. I think it was great for everybody. We even had someone switch characters during this time. But afterwards, things started hitting that gear 7, because we all have a gear 7 on our cars. And things just started blowing up. They basically had almost, I'd say, a year or two preview to the 3 years of downtime. And then they only had a few months post downtime, no more than, I'd say, 6 or 7. And they found out the fiend that was basically in control of it, or who they thought was in control of it. Then they also had a whole nother war that one of our specific characters with Ginger happened to deal with, that a city was basically being overwhelmed. It was a sort of historic rivalry, basically, between some deities of that time. And then one of her deities also fighting back because they were kind of protectors of the Fey realm. And that one happened to have influence over the Fey realms. So once they found out there was a little bit of rivalry there, but then they also found out that it had a little bit of influence with the whole war itself. Not anything like super crazy, just, a giant, colossal fire titan. But, they handled that pretty well. And then war happened. It was among a dwarven stronghold that has had a history with fighting off the devils, so much so that there was a rift within the dwarven stronghold, but they had created a box around it. But some of the dwarves were turned fiend and kind of let out some of the secrets. So a lot of the fiends ended up infiltrating the dwarven stronghold, and they massed around a lot of the infrastructures and just basically blew through the stronghold trying to open up said box and let out Zariel, who got to do double turns, which was pretty cool because she was kind of by herself. I ended up taking out two of the players, but unfortunately they both got up, which looking back, one of them shouldn't have gotten up, but hey, whatever. But they ended up defeating that.
She wasn't very nice. She stabbed my current character with my previous character's weapon.
Yeah, and that felt so satisfying for me.
And now I have it.
Yeah. And so after they defeated her, it was a lot of cleanup and then potentials for the future and stuff. I like to have my campaigns that could lead elsewhere. So it was a little bit open-ended, and some of, like, you guys in particular created your own finales to the story. That way, if I didn't do anything with it, you've got a good enough ending for you guys. But if I did mess with it, you guys are like, okay, we understand that it's almost like a non-canon finish, almost like a fan fiction of it in a way. So what did you guys think of the campaign?
We left it intentionally open-ended as well, so that it could fit into pretty much most scenarios, just in case.
Unless you died within a day, but yeah.
I guess my thoughts overall would be the first half of the campaign felt like it was introducing things to us over time and a little bit slower. And it almost felt like our characters had more time than we knew what to do with. And
yes,
but then as we slowly learned more and got pieces of information and another piece and another piece, and then basically right before that time skip is where we had the most information we were going to have to that point. And that's when everything really started to feel like, oh, wait, maybe we don't have time. And now we have to go split.
Yep.
Because of various reasons. Then when we, like you said, Rennie, when we came back together after, a few years of in-game time, the back half, which was also in-game taking place over only a few months, but it felt like our characters were just on the move constantly. Like it was one thing to another thing. Very little time to take a break, or very little time to think about what we were doing. And obviously that was intentional, right? Because the story started picking up. We potentially had a date for when we knew the invasion was going to come, because we got that information. And yeah, overall, I had a lot of fun with this campaign. And in real world time, this one was a little over a year for us. So it was a pretty long campaign time wise, but it felt like really the right amount of time to build out these characters. What about you, Ginger?
Definitely the amount of time that we spent in real life time doing this over the course of a little over a year, I thought was really nice. And at the end, when you asked everybody how they felt about it, everybody kind of agreed. It was actually pretty nice to get to spend a little bit longer with the same characters. Because what would you say your average campaign length has been up till now?
I think my first one was maybe about 20 sessions each, give or take. I can't think of the exact number, but it wasn't super long, because my first campaign, I was like, okay, here's my cool twist moment where, haha, this guy who was good was actually evil. And then I was like, then they're going to defeat him. But wait, how oh God, what are the steps for that? So I had the A and the C, but I didn't have the B figured out. And then for campaign 2, it was like a bunch of kind of monster things I kind of wanted to throw at and also test. And then it also was a build upon for the first campaign because it was in the same location overall.
So that one was about in real life time. That was maybe 4 or 5 months, campaign 2.
Yeah, about that, I think.
Yeah. And in the campaign itself, it was months, like a month or two at most.
Oh, and these are, we should say for the audience, these are weekly sessions that we're having.
Yes, once a week. So this was by far the longest one that the group has done together, by more than double. And yeah, it was awesome. I really loved having more time to get into a character. I feel like all of the characters by the end, even the players that don't do as much of the outside of session interactions, like the side chats and things like that, even those characters by the end were very fleshed out. They all felt like very fully realized characters that had, strong personalities and preferences, and you could kind of guess, what they were going to do, or worry about what they might do. So it was really fun. It was really fun to get that much into the development and seeing everyone have like an arc and fully realize like, their progressions. It was really cool.
Yeah, I like that I was able to give everyone something to either grasp on or to say, no thanks, sorry. Because we had one player, I actually had at least 2 players that were devil influenced, and one of them, trying to be sort of a secret agent. And then as soon as like something bad happened, went, nope, bye. And then, of course, Tuki, as the other one, was like, I mean, hells yeah, let's fucking do this. And then, was just slowly being
completely and utterly destroyed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say I was not anticipating ending up sort of with the main character Bullseye on my character for a decently long amount of it. That was unexpected. And I'm not 100% sure if I always handled it correctly, but it was really fun.
For me, there's been no wrong decisions. I try to say that with you guys all the time to all my players, is that I kind of want you guys to make the decisions that you would make rather than the decisions that you feel like is good. So I had Tuki going evil or going into like the darker path is a lot of fun because it's not something he would typically do, but it's something that he felt like his character would do. He was worried about it affecting the party and things like that. And I try to help with that.
Oh, was he?
I mean, you don't count because you kind of spiraled yourself down with him. So,
you were attached. It's different.
Yeah. And there was so many characters telling you to, hey, just watch it with her. But anyway, so aside from that, there was also like you had a lot of options and it, of course, grew because you kind of liked them all, to be honest. So that sort of helped creating that. And then my favorite moment, creating the weapon for one of our players that ended up like lighting up his character and honestly completely changing his character. But he loved it because it was a big conflict with his character and something that it really shifted his, probably in the end, shifted his maybe alignment, or at the very least shifted his views and morals and stuff to where he was basically just a husk for the weapon to do its thing. And while it is a really good thing, I mean, for that character, it's, basically a death sentence march.
Yeah, and it also heavily impacted my character's like life plans too, right? Because he was like the action and then I responded to that as like the equal and opposite reaction.
Yeah.
So like it definitely sort of spiraled out into Domino's future, as well as to like what she felt like she needed to do to keep him in check, or at least keep an eye on him for the foreseeable future as like the only other character who would have a very long natural lifespan. So that was also interesting because right up until the end, I didn't really know when you said like, hey, what do you think your character would be doing in the future? I didn't really know until kind of right towards the end, it kind of clicked into place. And it was a direct response to how the war in Sessera ended. The fight for the Feywild sort of decided everything for her. So that was interesting too, because, you want to give your character an arc, but sometimes you can't pre-plan the arc at all. You just have to kind of be like, oh, well, now that this happened, it would probably go this way. And I think we both sort of, Tuki and I have talked that we both sort of feel like if there was like a happiest possible ending and then like a worst possible ending, both of our characters kind of ended up in the middle of the road ending, at least for now.
Yeah, they sure did.
Great contribution.
Yep. No, well, okay. First of all, I wanted to pull back.
Explain yourself.
Yeah, I'll explain myself here. So pulling back a little bit, though, from a player perspective, I thought this campaign was really interesting because I started off playing, I was a rogue bard, Gestalt, and I had never really played rogue before, but I wanted to give it a shot. And so that took a little bit of adjustment, getting used to that. And then on top of that, I don't exactly remember the reasons behind it, but I think it was maybe after the first couple months of playing, or a few months, I was kind of unsure if I wanted to even continue playing this character. I think I even talked to you, Randy, a little bit about like, I'm not sure, like maybe I'll go to my backup character or something. But then basically stuff happening in the campaign drew me back into continuing to play her. And I mean, it's funny now because at this point, this character Silica is probably going to be my favorite for quite a while, because it was just such a like evolution of character throughout the whole time. But then also, already has been hinted that my character did go evil, ended up working and forming pacts with the devil, doing a lot of various stuff. Never anything against the party. I always wanted to still be for the same goals of the party, but definitely got very aggressive, very murdery, and very fiend-ish-y. But that was also different for me too. Playing an evil character is also something I hadn't done before, but it was a nice like slow transition into it as my character went evil. But really in the end, I don't see how I could have seen it coming, right? Like working with the devil
with no consequences.
Yeah, right. Like I just figured like I was going to get everything and we get this all cool information. I get cool stuff and then
happy ending or just fight other fiends.
I thought maybe he would just say, okay, you're free to go. Like, thanks for, being cool. Like I just, I didn't think he was going to, actually be the big bad behind the scenes of the entire invasion and then frame me and make me the full person for it. And then Asmodeus showed up and I got a one-on-one celebrity visit with him, and now I'm being torn apart and put back together for a while. Yeah.
It's okay, there's ecstasy involved too.
Oh.
It's so lovely. Sad that no one ever thought to warn you.
Well, okay, so hold on that note. Yeah. Really, I think the rest of the party should have given me some warnings and some stern talking to.
Basically just had one person that was trying to be your parent the whole time and telling you, hey, you can't do that. Don't go outside. And you're like, oh, I'm going to go outside. So screw you. Like, I want to go hang out with my friends.
I know, like, we joke about it, like, oh, nobody warned me. And like, oh, it's really too bad you had no heads up or whatever. But I do want to bring up, this is an important point that I've talked to you guys about before. Our two characters had like a history before the campaign started. Like they had been working together in the guild for a really long time. And so even before you started taking corruption, like they were really close. They had a good relationship. They were really good friends. And over the time skip, a whole lot of things went down and they were both drastically altered by the events of like the time that they were separated. When they came back together as the cleric, obviously my character was going to be like, oh shit, something's really wrong with you. Like, what's going on? Very suspicious of your contact, like knowing it was a fiend, but also like not outing you to anyone else, right? Like she was kind of enabling you a little bit in some ways because she knew she could help, but there are also only ways a cleric can help fix that kind of stuff is if the subject is willing, right? So it was never like I could just be like, hey, I'm gonna fix this. Like you had to say yes. So there was a lot of sort of like trying to convince each other of stuff, hiding things from each other, dancing back and forth up and down about it. And the whole time, my only sort of request of everyone was I just want it to be up to the dice. Like I just want it to I want there to be a shot to change it, right? Because you don't want to alter somebody else's, like, say if you had come to me on the side and said, hey, I just really want to do an arc where I go evil. Can you stop trying to convince me not to be evil?
Yeah.
Then we're not playing a game anymore.
Yeah.
We're actually just writing a story, which is fine. And if we ever want to write a story, I'm here for it because that's super fun to me. But this is a game and some things have to be left to the roles. So even in the side chats that we would have where like I was trying to get insights on what was going on with Silica, I would roll for them. And sometimes I would get some insight and sometimes I would just spectacularly fail to notice things. And so as the game went, even though like your sort of planned thing that you wanted to do was kind of go evil, there were several shots that we had that it might not have gone that way. So ultimately, as long as because everyone's like, well, you're super unhappy about it. It's like, well, sure, my character is not happy about it. But I, as a player, am fine with it because we did our due diligence with like fate, right? We played the game. We did not, make arbitrary decisions that would just like change the story however we felt like changing it.
Yeah, and I mean, I know, you just mentioned, I also had a lot of things built in where it's like, oh, okay, well, if this happens, then I'll go with this decision, you know what I mean? So there was a lot of chances for it as we went. I mean, in the end, my character, this character for me was a good example of staying in character, because a lot of the decisions my character made are definitely not ones I would have made, but I knew, they were very short-sighted. Okay. They're a very short-sighted character. Very much just like, okay, got to do this, got to get this done, got to get this, like not really thinking future or long term or anything, which sort of ended up being her downfall, I suppose. But
no, it was her pride.
Yeah. So I've got 2 points. First of all, I'm going to go back a little bit. So Tukey, for you, I think that one thing that I've done really well throughout, at the very least your first character and then this character as well, is I'm really good at hooking you. So like I take your story and I 11 it. And even with your second character, while you did have like the whole happy family and stuff, you were still like, oh, what the fuck? Like you still twisted me. Like, damn you, basically. That's great. And then with this character, because you yourself got more into it and the nuances of the character ended up elevating it to your favorite, because you had me there to give you all of the feedback. And now you're also reciprocating a lot more rather than the sort of yes man that, say, like Lex and your other character was. The other thing is, I think that Ginger, your character Domino, always approached Silica as a friend. He's trying to be there for her, trying to like you said, you sort of enable, but you're also trying to help her. But she's always responded to an authority figure. So had you came to her as more the authority, like you need to stop or something like that, she may rebel, of course. And it could have been the same result. And I'm not saying that this would have changed anything, but I do think that throughout the campaign, it was a very obvious where she responded to authority and an actual authority, like you being the guild leader wasn't necessarily the authority, because it's kind of a little bit different there for that. But having that build would have maybe been a little bit different. I actually think it would have been interesting to have Silica go a little more of the aggressive route because of that. I think she would have rebelled a bit more, but then maybe would have toned it back. Like I actually got worse earlier and then dipped back down rather than this slow climb build up. Because I mean, you're saying be careful, but you're not saying don't.
I mean, I definitely said don't a few times, but
I mean,
but yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean for sure. There was also like the element of I didn't really know for sure what was happening. Like there was a lot of factors.
I was hiding things.
The extent of things.
Which actually was a lot of fun, because that is not the type of player I am, and that took a lot to get used to. But I mean, because as the corruption was stacking, I was hiding like my eyes glowing red. I was hiding lizard scale skin under my fur. Like I was finding ways to hide things quite a bit. But I mean, that's also the reason like Randy, you said it was like a slow build, was because it was also the corruption stacking over time.
Yeah.
And that's how I was playing it. Because it was like, technically my character didn't go evil till about the halfway point in between the time skip and the ending. So at the last back quarter of the campaign, my character went evil.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a slow build to that. But again, it was also a campaign where we're fighting really evil things. So it was sort of easy to hide being evil
evil.
Yeah, it was kind of easy to hide it because we were just fighting things that were worse. But in the end, I will say, as much as we're joking here about my character's ending, yes, Asmodeus is technically torturing my character at the moment, but we're also pretty sure that she's going to become a fiend, which I think I don't even know how long while back, but I kind of also had that idea for my character based on just, again, her whole story. Like, it's sort of a fitting ending in a way. Yeah, it's not a great one, but like, it kind of makes sense for her.
Yeah, you don't need to have the good ending. You just want maybe a satisfying ending to you, whether good or bad.
I mean, I think it's a badass ending, but yeah.
Right, exactly.
I think also one of the major problems with maybe stepping up as an authority figure or anything like that would have been that they got into this feedback loop, like infinite feedback loop of they were trying to protect each other.
Mm.
Like, I was trying to like save you and you were trying to protect me from the stuff that was going, you were like, well, if I handle it, then you don't have to handle it. Right. So it was like they were at same purposes, but in opposed methods the whole time, which makes perfect sense for like what would eventually become sort of like a celestial deity and a fiend to be at opposites.
That's a good point, because my character, I actually forget the whole first half of the campaign for my character individually. There was like a leadership arc, so to speak. Like it was the first time she had a group that she was leading, and that was kind of cool to play with. But I folded that in a lot into her character, even in the back half, where it was like she still had, even though she was going evil, kind of like changing, she had these like almost obsessive, oh, well, I have to protect the group or whatever. So there was times where like my character died at the end of the combat and was horribly injured, after being brought back to life, but was like, oh, well, it's fine. Everyone made it out okay. Like ignoring herself, basically. And that's where the obsessions came from.
Yeah. She didn't value her own life enough.
So I did joke earlier about the sort of you being a parent figure, but honestly, you guys are more like a either sibling figure or a sort of bad relationship in a sense, where you guys were, it was almost like an argument building up, but it never actually got to the argument. And that's what I was kind of saying earlier. If you guys had the argument sooner, then the quote unquote truth may have come out, that kind of thing. But it never boiled. It just kind of festered. And I think that's where, go on.
I disagree.
Why? What?
Because I actually think we did have that moment when Ginger's character, basically I provoked her character to attack me in a side chat.
Yeah, but that was like pretty late into it as well.
That was the moment where my character actually was legitimately going to try to kind of reform a little bit. But it was, I think, 2 or 3 days later is when the devil came back and offered a great deal. So
yeah, I had it. Yeah. I was right there. I had like successfully did all the things and we were finally good. And then Randy ruined it.
I mean, I can't say that my influence hasn't helped bring him back, but just saying. But with the fiends and the betrayal and stuff, what do you guys think of the themes of the campaign? I mean, specifically this one was obviously fiend related. It was also, I would say, a lot more on the darker side. I did have some, as we kind of talked about in a few episodes ago, like sex and stuff like that was involved every now and then. It was also graphic and grotesque, but overall, what do you guys think?
I loved it. I thought they were so much fun. The Witch Queen was hands down my favorite. Your description of her haunts my nightmares to this day, but I thought it was so cool.
Good, I'm glad.
I had, for this campaign, I had 2 deities, or a deity and a patron. And the patron more or less is essentially the Baba Yaga. I named her Ms. Dione. And she was so much fun to talk to. Like, our one regret as a whole group collective was that she wasn't in the campaign more, because everybody loved her scenes so much.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out a way to fit her. What about you, T?
I didn't like this theme.
That's fair.
No. I did.
Your favorite fiend is yourself.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Anything that gets me to win.
My favorite villain of this campaign is my own character in the end.
Yeah.
No. I did enjoy it. What I will say was really nice was the group dynamic we had with the theme, because it was a really dark theme, but we also had some of the craziest funny moments throughout this campaign due to like multiple characters and their styles, like just the jokes that would come up, or like, how we approached it. One regret I have is that I definitely, as my character got darker and darker and the campaign got darker and darker, I had to like every time before session, like get myself in the mindset to play that like darker thing, which is fine. It was really cool and fun to do. But I'm ready for happiness and like a super happy, fun time now. No, I liked it. I thought it was a fun theme. I think we handled the line on stuff. I mean, maybe there was times we got like close to the line, but never felt like anything got crossed over. And everyone, I think, made fun of the situations, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I'll say like for me, my genre would be towards the dramatic. I like having it where it's, not say end of world days, but it basically there's things at stake. But in contrast, I prefer the players to be more on the fun side. That way they balance out my drama and dark brooding. And you guys kind of went the dark brooding route a little bit, especially, later Silica and stuff. But like you said, you had the other half of the characters that were a lot more fun or lighthearted, easier going, or actively was against the dark brooding. And I think that helps to balance it out. It makes it a lot more fun than just, wow, like we're just getting like the shit kicked out of us every day. And I am kind of not having fun anymore. And I don't want that, because as much fun as it is to make the drama and have things interesting and things at stake, but it's not fun if the players aren't having fun with that. So I like you guys to be like the fun characters, to be like, wow, like my brother just died last week, but hey, I got chicken tonight and I haven't had chicken in years. So this is a pretty good day. It's like, that, what?
Oh, so you wanted us to be insane. I gotcha.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say there was a stretch of time right after the time skip, like immediately after, where there were like 3 events, like back to back to back to back to back. Like in game, it was like within 24 hours, just a bunch of stuff culminating in like the destruction of that village. And then whatever the next immediate thing was right after that, where my character was literally like, I don't want to be back out here. Like the time skip just ended. I just got back from where I've been. I haven't seen anyone in 3 years, and this is fucked. Like there was a moment where if we didn't get downtime for a minute, she was gonna bounce. Like I was like, it was so upsetting for her, like all the stuff that happened. Like we did talk about, like, I was like, I don't know what she's gonna do, because like something has to get better for her. Somebody has to be nice to her. Somebody has to, like, we have to save someone, or like we need a success soon, or like I'm gonna lose her, basically.
You had Parish. She was there for you.
Yeah, that was like really partially the only thing that kept it going. But yeah, there was that one small brief moment of time. But other than that, even in the really dark times, like even after you went evil in the side chats, like even though I didn't know, strictly speaking, that you had gone evil as far as like your alignment, but like even in the side chats, like they never stopped like making stupid jokes at each other and having, like it was never like so severe all the time. And I think that ultimately that's one of the things about it that made it as an arc like so painful, right? Is because like even through all of the shifting and the changing and everything that was going on, like they still had that core thread line of like they were just normal friends. And so like to go back and look at some of those chats where it's like, like you pop in to give me stolen money and I'm like reading like a fae like smut romance novel and I like hide it under my pillow real quick. Like stuff like that was happening even after you were evil. Like, but there were always those funny like little moments that got thrown in there throughout the course of the campaign.
I think overall, all of our characters of everyone had some of the most realistic reactions to the most unrealistic situations. And they were all sort of different ways to cope, right? Like you were saying about how your character was, getting close to a line where it was like, why am I here? My character, because they were so short-sighted, they basically just never processed any of the information, and that's how they got by. It basically was just like, oh, we just got to keep doing this.
You didn't think of anything else but being here.
Right. It was just like, well, it doesn't matter because we just got to do this and then we're done. Or, okay, now we just got to do this and then we're done. Like there was just no processing of it. And then even the other player characters had their own ways of handling things. I mean, one of the other characters basically was like, I'm going to retire. I had enough of this.
Yeah.
And even set their own death flag leading into war, which didn't happen, which is nice.
Yeah, I know, right? Like I'm just 2 days from retirement.
Yeah, and then war.
If Zariel had one more turn.
One more. That's all she needed.
Yeah, it was interesting overall. Definitely everyone had their own ways of coping with the theme. The dark was fun in a way, and we were able to make a lot of like funny moments of it. But I think you're definitely right. I mean, if it was all dark all the time, no humor, no nothing, I don't know if how I would like that per se, just because it's like, man, that's like mentally taxing on a player too. But having the mix was really nice.
Yeah, and it made it feel more realistic because a lot of people like cope with dark stuff through humor, so it feels natural to be cracking jokes and
I do love my dark humor,
making bad puns, and yeah. I mean, Ginger as a player loves a dark setting, so it was super fun for me. And you guys tease me all the time about being like overly invested, but that's what's fun about it. So
I mean, I won't complain if the next setting is like a happy sunshine rainbow party that our characters are dealing with happy stuff.
It is sort of apocalyptic as well, but the tone of it will be a lot different at least.
Great.
I don't plan on it being something that's... So this campaign was, you guys are high level, so it was a sort of, you guys weren't gods versus gods, but kind of like that. You guys were actually the ones hunting the big bads. The next campaign isn't intended to be you guys hunting the big bads, but figuring out how to stop the big bads. So the tone of it is, you know that they're there, but you already don't have the power for it. So then how do we get the power? So then there's a lot more conversations.
Go evil.
Yeah, exactly. Or go evil. Yeah, join them, really, to be honest.
My turn.
No.
I mean, maybe.
No. Just me the one time. That's it. No one else.
You're not the boss of me anymore.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's something that was a small shift that I can already feel will have a very big difference between that campaign and this campaign, even though it's demons versus devils at this point. But my campaign 1 was an undead campaign, and there wasn't a huge emphasis of it, but a lot of the figuring out was what the thing was, how to stop it, talking with a lot of people and stuff. And they didn't really get a whole lot of like fighting going on. Actually, I think there was pretty light on the fighting. And even some of it was like mid-fight, one of the people they were trying to save was like, hey, stop, like, don't. I wasn't kidnapped. I came here willingly. And they're like, huh? And it really blew up their whole thing. It was great. But then campaign 2, you guys were just mostly fighting a bunch of big bads and had little things here. But I think that was a lot more lighthearted in general. Even for me, it was, yeah, there was a big monster that was going to do something, get them become super powerful. And there was these other things having their influences, but it wasn't anything that was on the scale of like, if you don't stop this, then the world's going to end.
And also it was a monster, right? It wasn't like a necessary, it was like an elemental, it was more like a force of nature than like an intelligent, malicious being who's trying to manipulate your party and like push you to do things you shouldn't and like trick you into becoming corrupted or whatever else. Like the devils had a lot more influence and power and intelligence than, say a big bad that's like a gigantic elemental, water beast or something like that. So it has a very different vibe because in this recent campaign, every single time it was personal. They were all very personal. And Domino's like first encounter with a major fiend was like the most personal, and it's had ongoing effects that are still ongoing for her and for like her life choices in the future and everything. And even, led to Silica trying to do some stuff to reverse it, like in the background, even though Domino never found out. So there was a lot of stuff going on, like layers and layers and layers. It was just really complex and a lot more involved. Emotionally, it was harder to not take everything a lot more personally.
Yeah, it was like a hurricane versus the high school person that you picked on one time on accident, and then they held on to it. And then years later down the road, they end up being your boss. And man, did they make hell out of working there.
I was going to say versus like Hydra, but okay, Randy. Randy, are you okay?
Yeah, I got real. Ignoring Randy's feelings right now. No, I actually liked that. I liked this campaign, how it had like a focused enemy. There was obviously other things as well. Like it wasn't all devils specifically. There was other types of fiends. There was
you weren't sure exactly who the enemy was at first.
Right.
You knew it was a fiend and a devil, but you weren't sure the name of them.
I like when there's like a similar enemy you're fighting the whole time, because I don't know, maybe my character was diving into the lore behind Fiends more too. But it really felt like we were able to build out all of that environment and lore around the enemies we're fighting, because we weren't so scattered, bouncing between like, oh, we're fighting a fae, oh, now we're fighting an undead, oh, now we have a devil, oh, now we have a dragon, now we have, because we were focused on something for a long time, we got to know how their hierarchical society works with the devils more, and how that plays into what they're doing and why they're doing it. I thought that part of it was fun. Really kind of got to go in depth into the lore of a particular enemy group.
I also, as I'm preparing for the next campaign, tend to look at a lot of lore of D&D and creatures and things to get inspiration. And even just this week got a good hit of inspiration for a vast majority of how to do things. But I like having to look up these creatures and stuff and then get inspiration, but I like to create my own thing with it. Like, I want you to be like, oh, hey, this seems familiar, but that's not the way I think it went. Like Titavilis, for example, which was ended up being one of the masterminds of it. He was almost in the shadows the entire time, almost had no influence whatsoever that you could see, but he's a master of twisting words and making people do things and getting these little pieces going and moving in the direction that over time he feels like was sort of a catalyst for everything that ended up being the campaign, really.
I didn't see him being the mastermind behind everything. I knew he was going to turn on me. Like, I really had a feeling, especially when he showed up in person at the very end post-campaign to my character. But yeah, I didn't necessarily think he was going to be the mastermind. So some mistakes might have been made on my character's part. But #no regrets.
You didn't start feeling like he was the master when you started having to call him master? That wasn't like a clue for you?
I mean, okay, now hold on.
There was just no one warned you, huh?
There's no signs, okay?
To be fair, he wasn't very specific and often was evasive or not even like, I don't know yet, or couldn't respond to a lot of the questions asked, not because he obviously didn't know them, but because he was trying to avoid it entirely. But it made a lot of sort of some of the plot holes or some of the stupid moments, like a devil flying around saying a bunch of numbers, like, why that's stupid. And then you realize that someone planted that devil for someone to pick it up to then tell the party, oh God, we fell right into it. So it made it connect a lot more, and that's what I liked about it. And even if it was something, I'm not saying whether I planned it out in the beginning or something like that, but it's great to have something vague that you can fill in the blanks later and be able to kind of expand upon it and make it actually make sense. Which, speaking of that, I feel like that you guys in particular, and I feel like everyone to a certain degree had a little bit of their, say, life experiences part of their characters. I myself obviously didn't really have packs of fiends and things like that, but I have had a lot of good results having grown up with some of my favorite shows having that drama built in with the comedy, and it made the comedy so much funnier when it's something that's just dark and then it's hilarious. That I think that's kind of been my theme for the campaigns. But you guys have any life experiences that helped with your characters specifically? It's okay, Ginger, you can go first.
I was just going to say, I feel like you're both just staring at me.
Go ahead, Ginger.
Well, I've said this before, but when I created Domino, I did it very quickly because I was very busy on a job. And I spent all my time on her stats and her build because it was really complex. It was kind of a mad build. So like, I didn't really put a lot of effort into her backstory. I think I sent you like 3 paragraphs on her backstory, one on each of her, like her deity and her patron, and like one on her. And that was pretty much it. And I was like, I'll figure out her personality and who she is like as it goes. And that I do kind of feel like, at least initially, was a mistake. Because she ended up being me. Like, a lot of things about her are me things. And it was interesting because it was interesting because I've never played a character that long. And she did end up at some point sort of diverging from me and becoming her own thing. And I was able to be like, okay, now I know what she would do or say. And she did become sort of her own fully realized entity. But in that process, she did still retain a lot of sort of my base characteristics. So it was interesting. I used her. This isn't a secret to you guys. I had a really, really rough year last year and was in a lot of very sad situations, went to a lot of funerals, had a lot of hard times. And when I was sort of making her and sort of getting her off the ground, right around the time that the really bad stuff hit her in the campaign, it was also kind of me being like, okay, I can take all of like the sad that I have and just pour it into her because she would also be sad. And I hear a lot, I bring it up because a lot of people talk about RP as like a type of therapy or like being able to work through things in a safe space, like from a distance, on the table. And I do think there was a period of time where Domino sort of did that for me. The unintended effect of that was that I got happy again. And I'm not sure if she ever quite made it there.
No.
Which I feel a little guilty about, but I'm just blaming you about it. I'm just saying it was Silica's fault.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's easy to take this little sort of avatar you've built and sort of infuse them with like all of the things you want to get rid of and then just set them loose in the campaign and see what happens. Ultimately, she ended in a decent spot, considering everything. But yeah, she did end up sort of taking on a lot of my personal baggage, which I feel a little bit sad for because I'm very fond of her and I don't want her to be traumatized for life. But, it's your fault, so it's fine.
It is funny, though, because as our two characters were somewhat attached, I have said multiple times, and I feel bad for your character. And meanwhile, you're like, what are you doing to your character? So it is funny how that...
It does feel like that your character did drag her down. Like, I'm not saying that in sort of a negative way and like that intended, but like...
It did because of the situation, because of how they were interacting. It was like they were kind of over intertwined, and then my character was going through stuff. And your character was like trying to help and then got tangled up in it as my character just kept going deeper and deeper in other stuff. But yeah, hey, I didn't know all the other stuff. So, but it is what it is. But it was, good character stories and character writing. What I was going to say, though, for my character, there was a few traits from either myself or like life experiences, I think, that went in there, but they're relatively minimal. I would say, if anything, I used my own experiences as more of a what wouldn't my character do? And then I was like, oh, okay, well, if I wouldn't do that, my character might do that. So I don't know. I almost felt like I used opposites from my own experiences. I mean, I was very aware that this devil was bad and I shouldn't keep doing this. And then I was like, well, my character's getting results from it and they're willing to do it. So let them go do it. So it was like kind of the opposite of my own experiences.
I still think that relates though, because you still took your life experiences and wanted to shift it. Often I might want to, actually, I think a lot of people would want to be a character that is not them. I'm not saying like, Ginger did a very quick one, but overall we want to be characters that we're not. We want to be something completely different. And to do that, you have to look at yourself and be, I don't want to be that. Not that your life may be bad or anything, but you just want to be a different entity. So it's cool to, I think, take a step back and look into your life experiences and then figure out a character that maybe had it the other way. Like if you were down on your life, maybe it's a character who's always been up on their life and had everything going for them. And then finding out in the campaign, maybe that didn't end up being a good path for them either. I think that'd be actually really interesting to find out, is almost something that you thought would be better. And then you played it out and you're like, oh, well, that actually still kind of sucked. Well, dang.
My last character was nothing like we had exactly one thing. Yeah, we had exactly one thing in common, and that was that we. Yeah, no, I'm not French. But we had exactly one thing in common, and that was that we both liked monsters, and that's it. Like nothing else. She was nothing like me. And my next character is also going to be very different from me, and I'm excited about that. But yeah, Domino, I think it was kind of an accident that she ended up sort of being like my little miniature self, but it also ended up being a good thing for me over time because I really did sort of use her to work through some stuff. You know, she came along at a good time, and I'm very fond of her.
Poor Domino.
Yeah, she'll be all right. She's not getting torn apart by Asmodeus right now, so you know she'll be all right.
Sure.
I mean, technically Silica's a fiend at this point, but you know, it's still cool. I mean, like, yeah, Brandy, you were exactly right where you're saying like sometimes you want to play the opposite. Like, it was a lot of fun to play a character that was just direct opposite to what my brain was telling me I should be doing. The amount of reckless disabandonment during battle and everything was like that I would obviously never do in real life, but it would also had never done on another character before. And then my previous campaign character was kind of the opposite from what you were saying, Ginger. My previous campaign character was a lot more myself. And then this one is my next one. Well, I don't know. We'll have to wait to see what happens with that one, but definitely going to be a lot happier. I will spoil that because I don't want to be dark anymore.
You need a break.
I'll take a little break.
Oh.
Well, and I was right there in your corner every step of the way, making you feel as guilty as humanly possible on purpose. So,
yep.
I'm sure that didn't help.
Yep.
I would do things like send you like her Hero Forge photo with like her big sad eyes and be like, this is what you're making cry every night with your behavior.
Well, yeah, but what have I been doing recently? I've been sending you the Hero Forge of my character as a fiend.
I mean, you guys have been talking. I just noticed this door. Did you guys notice it?
No.
Oh, no. Is it
what door?
A dimension door?
It is a dimension, I think, to the Flash round.
This is the Flash round, where we take turns creating the bones of a character that anyone can use. If you play one, let us know who they become. Let's roll initiative.
8.
13.
Well, I just wasted my 20 for the night.
No.
Oh. All right, Mr.
Why?
Sparkle Pants, you get to go first.
Aha. All right. Then for the race,
Come on, man. 10 seconds. Go.
I'm going with Changeling.
Ooh, okay. I don't know anything about changelings.
They change. Lings.
Mm. All right, I'm going to go fighter for the class.
Fighter. All right, well, as a changeling fighter, I think like the only option for them really is to just be the champion.
All right, let's say for their appearance, like their standard appearance, what they tend to do the most, gonna go with a tabaxi, maybe a little bit on the shorter side, black fur, white spots, long ears, short tail.
Okay. Tabaxi changeling.
See what you did there?
Aha.
Well, you said champion, right, for this subclass?
Yep.
Okay, let's go Knight of the Order for the background.
Ooh, Knight of the Order. Let's see, for a personality trait / quirk, let's say that we're going with a she, right? Good answer, guys. All right, so for her, we're gonna go for that. She is she really gets extra giggly with bubbles. Like anything to do with bubbles, like anything that's round or something like that. She's like, oh, it kind of reminds you of a bubble, and I don't know, it makes me giggle.
Okay, but then for her ideal, even though she's really giggly and bubbly, it's gonna be victory, and she just needs to win. That's her ideal.
It's gonna go great for the bubble contest.
Mm-hmm.
Her strongest bond as a changeling is with her alter ego, who is not a her.
All right, so and for her flaw, let's say that she is worried that she might offend someone.
For her item, okay, so since she's nice and bubbly, right, we're going to have this personally wood-carved little stick with a circle on the top that she always carries with her. It's a bubble wand.
Nice. It does like prestidigitation or something on it. I love it.
And her name is going to be Renge.
Ooh.
Fancy.
Renge with the little accent on top.
Nailed it.
And she's banished to the fans. Good luck. Hey, you made it to the end. Well, if you enjoyed this session and want to hear more, you can find us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at DysfictionalPod for our latest updates and downloads.
Original music for this podcast is provided by Joshua Silver, the artist known as Dimonon on Spotify.
If you didn't want to go evil so bad, none of this would have happened. Now you're being tortured by Asmodeus himself for thousands of years. What am I supposed to do? You never told me. I can't do anything. I can't do anything about it now. Are you happy? Is this what you wanted?